Dillian, the body snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
So Dereck Chisora will take on David Price on the 26th of this month at the O2 Arena on the Regis Prograis, and Josh Taylor undercard as chief support. Now, yesterday he held a kind of press conference, a media gathering, if you like, where he was talking about his next opponent, David Price, how he's got like a lot of respect for him. He's looking forward to the fight. He's expecting the best David Price that there possibly could be. Now, Dereck Chisora, he had like a whole team of reporters from the UK, of course, all around him, all firing different questions and that at him. Now, as a side note, for me, that's something that I don't know why I can't do that kind of thing. For me, I've been to a few press conferences where I see people do that. I could never be one of those people. For me, it's always a case of one-on-one or not at all. That's just me. Either way, he was answering these questions, and Frank Warren was brought up because Frank Warren, whenever he mentions about potential opponents for Daniel Dubois or Joe Joyce, etc., Dereck Chisora's name does tend to pop up from Frank Warren. And either way, Dereck Chisora, amongst other things with Frank Warren, said this: Frank Warren needs to stop saying my name. He's a dinosaur in a young man's game. Frank Warren needs to leave the promotion now to his kids. Frank Warren, you need to retire and go hang out with your grandkids. So, Dereck Chisora's statement. Now, I'll put a link to it in the description box so you guys can go watch one of the reporters filming all of this. And Dereck Chisora didn't hold back, and he said a whole lot more things. Now, just based on that very, very brief snippet that I've just read out to you, I don't quite understand where this whole beef between Frank Warren and Dereck Chisora has really come from, because these guys are once upon a time or from the outside looking in, they seemed pretty close, okay? And Dereck Chisora, he said the last time that Frank Warren put on a big show was actually one of his fights, which was against David Haye at Upton Park. A lot of you guys will remember that one. Now, for me, I kind of disagree with that one to a point. I think Frank Warren's put on quite a few good shows since then. But where the beef has come from, I have no idea. Now, bearing in mind, this was Frank Warren with a Dereck Chisora. Now, for those of you who see Dereck Chisora as pretty volatile and can flip the switch in that now, back then, this was almost a daily thing, okay, where Frank Warren really had to make excuses for him and was always trying to advise him and guide him and help him and all this kind of thing, where Dereck Chisora was being arrested for domestic abuse and all kinds of things, okay? We don't need to drag all that up. But point is, Dereck Chisora was a very, very volatile person way back when, okay? And, of course, Frank Warren, he helped make the fight between Chisora and Vitaly Klitschko. And then, of course, the David Haye fight and so on. But ultimately, I think that these guys just had enough, or Frank Warren had enough of his antics. Chisora wasn't showing too many signs of changing. And, of course, Dereck Chisora, I believe he went to Sauerland after that point. I believe so. Anyway, quite what their beef is, I don't know. I know Dereck Chisora did say how Frank Warren owed him money, but then later did another post saying, well, okay, right, scratch that. I was just saying complete nonsense. He didn't owe me anything, okay? So, again, but I think that what Dereck Chisora is saying here is, hand it over to your kids. Now, for me, I've been saying for a while, not that Frank Warren should just retire and leave, not at all, but I think that he does need to give, especially his son Francis, a bit more upfront time than I think Francis gets, because Francis, whenever he holds a press conference or he holds media interviews and all that kind of thing, he seems very, very capable. He's okay with it, okay? It's not like he's out of his element, okay? Francis is actually pretty good at doing what he does. So from that point of view, I can certainly see that, yeah, I think Dereck Chisora is correct, that he should let Francis do a lot more than maybe what he does, because I think Francis is more of a backseat kind of driver in that in a minute. Frank Warren, maybe, I don't know, maybe Frank Warren is afraid to hand the reins over. Maybe he doesn't have that much faith in his kids. I don't know what it is. Or maybe he's one of these guys, he's just like a bit of a control freak, okay? He likes to be involved in everything, which could well be the case. But maybe it's a case of he doesn't want to step back because he just enjoys doing what he does. Anyway, beside all that, Frank Warren is still a very, very important part, especially with British boxing, and he has been for many, many years. So him just being called a dinosaur, okay, yeah, all right, he's getting on a bit. And Eddie Hearn, of course, said similar things about Frank Warren recently as well. Because Frank Warren, he's very opinionated. But it's not like Frank Warren is only just opinionated on things. He's always been opinionated. Always has been and will always be so. He's part of that old school mentality of don't hide it, just say it. Say what you think, say what you feel. And of course, a lot of people don't like hearing it. Listen, I get it, okay? He does say some pretty cringe stuff sometimes that I think maybe you do need to just concentrate on doing what you're doing. Don't worry about what it is that Eddie Hearn or whoever else is doing. You know, just do you. All right. But listen, it's part of Frank Warren's DNA. He's a very competitive kind of person and at times very, very bitter. Okay. But likewise, when you've been involved in boxing for a great many years, boxing will make you that way. Okay. But I mean, no, I disagree with Dereck Chisora saying that he needs to retire. I know a lot of people would like him to retire, but purely because they just don't like him. But I do feel that Francis, especially Francis, needs a bit more of a upfront kind of thing. Much like with Eddie Hearn, when Eddie Hearn took over from Barry. Of course, Barry, he'd pretty much like left the boxing game anyway, and then Eddie just regenerated it a little while later. And I think that, I'm not saying that Francis is going to be on the kind of level of Eddie, or maybe he will be, we don't know, until he's given a damn good run at it. Why not? I mean, Eddie Hearn, the character that you see right now, he hasn't always been that way. I mean, if you guys go watch the videos of when Eddie Hearn first started doing boxing, he seemed very, very, I don't say shy, but not far off it, which is pretty much how Francis is right now. But Francis is comfortable. He's comfortable being in front of a camera. He's comfortable speaking. And he does talk a lot of sense as well. And he doesn't seem that hateful of what other people are saying. Don't get me wrong, he will defend his company, if you like. Of course he will. He will defend his fighters. That's his job, as all promoters and managers and that do. But from one point of view, Dereck Chisora, he's just saying what he says just to try and upset Frank Warren because maybe he just doesn't like Frank Warren mentioning his name. I don't know. But ultimately, if Frank Warren wants to make Joe Joyce or Darren Dubois versus Dereck Chisora, why shouldn't he try and make it? You know, I mean, why not? These are kind of the fights that people would love to see, wouldn't they? So for me, but at the same time, though, with Dereck Chisora, the way he flies off the handle, now he's pretty much ruined any kind of chance of him ever fighting on BT Sport. Because Frank Warren, once he holds a grudge about you, he will hold it for life, pretty much, okay? And with his antics recently at the Sky Sports press conference, when he's supposed to have taken on Parker, and the way that he was going at Adam Smith and going at Eddie Hearn and everything, if Eddie Hearn and Sky said, right, you know what, we've had enough of you right now. Right, you ain't coming on Sky Sports no more. Where's he going to go? There's nowhere he could possibly go because David Haye, he doesn't have the Channel 5 or the Dave channel and all that kind of thing anymore. So therefore, Dereck Chisora will be out in his ear with nowhere to go because Dereck Chisora is not managed or promoted by Matchroom. And he's certainly not going to be with Frank Warren anymore. So he does need to be a little bit more careful now. Maybe tread on some eggshells a little bit with Eddie Hearn. So hey, listen, it is what it is. Dereck Chisora, he's always going to be opinionated. Sometimes he says things he doesn't mean. I don't know whether or not he actually means what he's saying about Frank Warren being a dinosaur, needs to retire and pass it over to the kids. I don't know, but it is a shame. It is really a shame because regardless of what you think about Frank Warren, he did do a lot for Dereck Chisora, okay? He kept Dereck Chisora around a lot longer than I think a lot of people would have done. A lot of people would have went, you know what, you're too much for me, and just walk away. Especially the kind of character that Dereck Chisora was back then. I said he was uncontrollable back then. He had a real bad attitude. He really did. But anyway, listen, Dereck Chisora, he's entitled to his own opinion, as I do agree that that Frank Warren should allow his kids to have a bit more upfront time, or maybe they just don't want it. Maybe he's offered it to them, but they just don't want it. Maybe Frank Warren's a control freak and just likes to be upfront. He likes to be in control of his company. He doesn't trust other people to do it for him. I don't know what the reason is, but from that point of view, I do understand what Dereck Chisora is talking about, but he is being a bit brutal when it comes to Frank Warren, considering their history. If you didn't have too much history with Frank Warren, I'd probably go, oh, fair enough. You know, just say what you got to say. But ultimately, listen, it is what it is. So, as I said, I'll put this in the description box so you guys can go watch it for yourself if you haven't seen it before already. Of course, have your own opinions. Do you agree with Dereck Chisora? Do you think that maybe he's been a bit too harsh, or do you think like me that maybe Frank should try and encourage Francis to take a bit more of a upfront kind of role and just see where it goes. Anyway, drop your thoughts below about it, click the thumbs up of course, and subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.